So good evening. My name is Mickey Harrison. Some of you know me, a lot of you may not. So I am our new testing coordinator in college, our counseling administrative assistant. And basically what I spend a lot of my time doing is looking at student testing, the data, how we perform as a school, and also meeting with your students if they come in asking about how they can help themselves prepare for testing. And so I've been here since August. Before that, I lived in the social worker world, so I ran a homeless shelter for families, and I also traveled around the Southeast doing ACT prep. So I've had a little bit of experience with everything. I really have enjoyed being here at CAK. I have two freshman boys at CAK. They are both ninth graders, although they are not twins. And so I have a stepchild and a biological child here, and then I have an 8th grade daughter who's in the middle school. And then I have a 3-year-old who, of course, is not here yet, but he will be soon. And so I just wanted to spend our time today kind of giving you a brief look at your student scores, helping you analyze what's going to be best for your child. And then we've invited test prep organizations here so that you can have time to ask them questions and kind of see their perspective from things, and hopefully let you out by 8. So I want to be respectful to your time. Can you turn the light down just a little bit up front? I apologize for the brightness of the screen, so hopefully this will not put you to sleep because of the light, but hopefully you'll see the screen a little bit better, okay? So if you haven't yet, 9th grade scores are on this side, 11th grade scores are on this side, and 10th grade scores in the back table. Now 10th grade will be the only grade that has both their pre-ACT and pre-SAT scores tonight, because sophomore year is the only year that our students test in both tests. If you would like access to your students' ACT scores, if they're in 11th grade, I'll be happy to print those out for you, give them to you. If your child is a freshman, you don't have access to those scores yet because they've not taken it yet. So let's get started. What we're going to do tonight, that's not it. We're just going to briefly review your students' results and what they mean, and you cannot read that, I apologize. And then we're going to talk a little bit about future planning for your student in CAK, and then we're going to have a question and answer panel session with Michael Smith, Joel Vance, and Kevin Ward from Sylvan Learning Center. So I'm looking forward to that. So let's get right to the results, because that's why we're here, right? School-wide, our school-wide ACT results, and this is for seniors who graduated last year, we're at a 25.5 on our ACT. So that's really only taking into account seniors who've graduated last year. The way schools report and school systems report, they report from their senior classes, their graduating senior classes. So when you look at that number, and again, I'm just going to apologize again for how the screen looks, you'll see that we're kind of even in each of the subject areas, English, math, reading, and science. And so our composite score is something that we want to keep improving and keep increasing with each of the graduating classes. So if you think about your student who's possibly a sophomore right now or a freshman, you're going to be preparing them and kind of using this average as kind of a barometer of how your student is comparing to other high school seniors that have graduated from CAK. Okay? So here's how we kind of measure up against other high schools. And you cannot read this at all, so I will read it to you. Starting on your far left is CAK. So we're sitting at an average of 25.5. Next to us is Catholic. They're at a 25. Webb is at a 28. Grace is at 24.5. This is Maryville High School, who's at a 23.4. Knox County Schools sits right at a 21.1. Then you have nationwide, the average is 20.8, and then statewide, our average is 19.6. So I wanted you guys to see how we measure up against other schools that are like us, and I'm actually very proud of us. And I think that's a trajectory that can keep increasing. So each year, our students' average ACT score has improved, and that's what we hope to keep doing. First one. Right here. Yes, we apologize. Any other questions about this one? So the only school right now that's beating our average is Webb right now. So kudos to your parents. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So, do you have the statistics on what these seniors did as sophomores?
That's actually a great question. I didn't think of doing that, but I can. Absolutely, I can send that out. And I'll, the pre-ACT. So here at CAK, we take the pre-ACT sophomore year. We could have comparable data. But I will let you know that sophomores this year, we're right on par. We're at a 25 as well for our average for pre-ACT. And it kind of directly relates to how they will do on the ACT. Cool? So if your child took the pre-ACT this year, and I apologize if your child has not, and I'm so sorry, this is not how I imagined this would look. But you have a pre-ACT report. So your first kind of column is going to be your child's composite score. And that's going to go over from left to right. You'll have these blurbs, these blue kind of like shaded areas. And that's going to be your child's predicted range. Because this is a practice test and not the actual test, it can give us a range of how your child is predicted to score in the actual ACT. You'll also see gray lines, which you can see on the actual handout. And the gray line is benchmark. So if your child's blue blurb is above benchmark, that's great. And benchmark is going to be how your child will perform for college level freshman classes. So that's the benchmark they're trying to attain. If your child is right in there, that's great. If your child is over it, even better. If your child is under that benchmark, don't worry. It's still just a practice exam. What I love about these exams is that it can help give your child a barometer for where they'll be. And so as I've been telling your children, I've been in the 10th grade class today and last week, don't freak out. This is just a practice test. Don't compare yourself to other students. I've been telling our students that God has a plan uniquely for them and that God will open doors for them to get into the college that He's designed for them. So I want to encourage our parents to kind of, even though we're competing and even though we want our students to be the best, our students are facing a lot of anxiety and stress. And a lot of times, and I'm speaking for myself, that starts at home. I have very high standards for my kids and what I want them to do. And sometimes when we start to compare them with their peers, it puts extra pressure on our kids. So just know that your kids are up against a lot already. And that you want to support them best in the way that you can support them as only they can be. So if you're looking at this same, it's going to be on the first kind of section on your child's handout. This is their kind of range. It's going to give you ranges of how they're doing. Any questions about that? So below that, you're going to have more detailed pre-ACT results. The top bar is going to show you if they were to take the ACT right now, that's the range they're going to have. Again, it's a range. So it kind of lets you know, okay, if my child took this test today, this is what we can expect them to score. This is how we can expect them to score. Under that, you're going to have detailed pre-ACT results. It's going to have the sections, so math, science, English, and reading. It's going to have what the subject was. And this is important because I've been telling your students, look at what you've done poorly on. If it says functions and you've gotten 1 out of the 10 answers right, then you have a detailed kind of roadmap for what you should be studying for. If you didn't do well on your English section, what I love about these reports is that you can look and see which questions you were strong in. And not only the section, but also the types of questions. So if you're thinking about tutoring or self-paced study or going out to have someone help you, you have more of what you want your child to improve on. A lot of times students come to me and they're like, I just want to have 2 points better. I just want to do better. But what area do you need to do better in? Okay? As we're talking about improving and taking the test multiple times, there's multiple different studies. But you can expect for your child to increase their score 1 to 3 points. And sometimes they decrease. Okay, so you want to be strategic on how you're having your child study and who you're spending your money with and what plan you want for your child to accomplish. Any question about this? Yes, sir.
So maybe a basic question. So on the top part of this page, STEM And then the bottom, it's not mentioned. So is that an actual category, or there's 4?
So STEM is just going to be the math and science average. And so that's at an actual section. It's just combining your math and science score. So that's why it's not at the bottom, but it's at the top. You have some schools that are focused more on STEM, and so that's just a good kind of quick and ready for schools to be able to identify this is how this child performs in the STEM area, if that makes sense. Any other questions? Cool. Your kids thought this was kind of cool. It's a pie chart. They basically, before they take the exam, they answer questions about their interest, what kind of career path they would like to have. And so this pie chart has a shaded blue area. And is that one better? Y'all want to move over? Okay, great. I feel so much better. Thank you. But so that pie chart kind of it's shaded in, and it shows you basically what area that your child is likely to excel in based on the questions they answered on the pre-ACT. Yes. I told your students this is not Bible. So if it says they're gonna do well in one area and they're like, nah, that's not for me, don't worry about it. But it's just something extra to help them understand. You answer these types of questions, or you've done well answering these types of questions. If you have a 10th grader, I spent time asking them what they would like to major in, what they'd like to do with their life, because I've been encouraging our youth to think about their future early. Not to put pressure on testing early, but to give themselves a roadmap of where they want to go in their life, and to let them know that their junior year is fast approaching. Even if you're in 9th grade, that sophomore year will go by very fast. And so we want to get them forward thinking and give them ownership in their own future. Are there any questions about this? So for PSAT results, I figured I'd give you guys a little break from listening to my voice and show you a video of how to interpret those. So 1 second. Understanding your child's score report. You can go to psat.org and get your full report. It's going to be electronic. And so if you want another copy, or if you hadn't had a chance to access that, that's where all your data will be. This is going faster than I'm talking. You'll have your total score, and you can review. I'm just going to not do that, and I will go at my own pace. I apologize. But in the PSAT packet, when you first open it up on the top left-hand corner, that's going to be your child's score. Right underneath that, you'll see the percentile, and so that will show you where your child compares between all the other students that took this test. So the percentile, you'll see that they perform better than or just the same as other students. Below that, you're going to have the reading and writing score and your math scores below that, and it'll also give you percentiles for that. So I've been telling your students that, yeah, it's good to see how you measure up against all the students across the nation. But again, I'm reinforcing the fact that this is not something you should be extra stressed about. Yes, you should want to score well. Yes, your scores do decide where you're going to go to college. But I also want them to enjoy the high school experience and understand that there are other things in life that they can be focusing on as well. Another part of the PSAT score report, you're going to see a National Merit Scholarship Index. And that number is multiplied by 2, and it's kind of arbitrary. The only thing you need to know, and it's going to be in your top right-hand corner, is that if there is an asterisk there, they're telling you that your child right now probably wouldn't qualify for the National Merit Scholarship. I told your kids, don't worry about that. We are happy to have 2 semifinalists for the National Merit Scholarship this year, Sam Clower and Eli Oakes. So what happens is if you score high enough compared to students that are taking the exam, you will be nominated to be a semifinalist. And then after that, your school is responsible for uploading all of their courses. Every course that we ever offer, we have to upload that. And then we also have to upload how well the student performs, so upload all their grades. What I'm telling our students, and what's true, is that they look at the course rigor, the courses that we offer here at CAK, and also the level of the courses that they took. And I want them to be proud of being at CAK, because we know that we are a very academically rigorous school. We know that we have great teachers. We know that we have great coursework. And so I want them to have pride and have confidence in things like this, because how they are performing, if they were at another school, they're doing a lot more work. right? They're carrying a lot more work. They're doing a lot more intense work. And I want them to be proud of that. So when we're thinking about the National Merit Scholarship on our part, we upload all of our grades, and we kind of have to give merit to our school, CAK. And so after they become semifinalists, we will find out in late February if those 2 students are indeed finalists. So what I told sophomores this year is, next year when you're taking the PSAT, really come prepared. You have a chance, an opportunity that you can be a semifinalist, but don't count yourself out. I'm talking to your kids about having confidence and having courage, right? And performing within their own means instead of comparing themselves to other students. Are there any other questions about the PSAT score results? Yes, ma'am.
Do you have the same stats comparing our schools here, like we did the ACT?
I do not. One of the reasons is the ACT is kind of like become the national barometer. And so the data is not as readily available for PSAT as it is for pre-ACT. On the pre-ACT, it's reported in all the school profiles. It's on the Knox County School website. And that's kind of like how we are measuring how we're doing compared to other schools.
It's strange since the merit scholars are determined by the PSAT instead of the ACT.
And so how we kind of go around that, not a go around, people get to brag about how many semifinalists and finalists they have. If you have semifinalists, that means those kids are performing well. But I can double check and I can get back to you on data and see if there's other data out there from other schools that we compare our students to.
We came from the Northwest, the Pacific
Yes.
Northwest, so it's big SAT. They rarely take ACTs there, so.
Exactly. I grew up in Chicago. My town, my school was SAT heavy, and it is a regional shift. So I completely agree with you there. In the South, where we're at, we're ACT heavy. Now, that doesn't mean that the colleges are, but our educational system in the South, in Tennessee, that we're ACT heavy. And so that's where a lot of funding is judged by how well students are performing on the ACT. And that's just kind of how it is. Michael?
Yeah, and then in the public schools, the PSAT isn't required. It's kind of an optional thing for students to take. I think private schools like Webb and Catholic make most of the sophomores and juniors take a few off too. So
Did you guys hear that?
comparison stats would be hard because it's only some actually do it in the public schools.
In the South, you're saying?
In the South.
Yes.
And not, well, no, I was thinking about Knoxville, yeah, Knoxville.
Yeah, because she scored much better on that SAT than the ACTs.
Yeah, and that
She
could,
also came from schools in the Northwest.
exactly.
So there's something different that you're studying out there.
Yeah. And in a couple minutes, we can open up more questions to our panelists. But, I mean, that is true. Knox County schools require all of their students to take ACT. They're not required to take the PSAT. And so when you're thinking about data, if you don't have a lot of it, it becomes unreliable. So we could say, oh, yeah, we scored the highest, but maybe we only had 2 kids take it, and another school has 10 kids take it. So it's not comparable, as where with the ACT, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of data points that we can compare. Yes?
The box that's down in the left corner underneath the SAT scores.
Mm-hmm.
They look like ACT scores. Is that something that is predicting what your score would be if you were taking the ACT?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a kind of comparison box. Anything else? One second, my computer is asleep. Great. So future planning, when you're thinking about, okay, we have these results, what do we do now? I'm kind of aligning what I'm telling you with what our counselors will be telling your children. And so we're thinking about future planning and how to use their scores and how it's relevant and what we can do to better support your students. First and foremost, I want to share with you that we have been thinking a lot about how to best support your students on site, on campus. So one of those things is we hope to have at least one ACT exam on site at CAK next year. We're not sure if it'll be in the fall or the spring, but we feel that that will help eliminate some barriers that some of our students might have. If the students are used to going to school here, they may feel uncomfortable going to Bearden to sit to take a test or Farragut High School, so that might reduce some anxiety that they have. Another thing that we're looking at is having on-site test prep, and there's different ways that we want to roll that out. So of course, with permission from our board and support from our teachers, we're gonna figure out how we can best provide test preparation for your students here while they're in school. We're looking at a couple different softwares and talking to a couple different teachers that would be responsible for teaching a class and doing test prep. So I do want you to know that while we've welcomed people here and we encourage you to go out into the community and find people that will best support your child's needs, we want to also give you the best value for your education here. And so part of that is making sure that your child is prepared as best they can for test prep and college preparation. Okay, so real quickly, so ninth grade, we're telling, a lot of ninth graders don't realize how important their GPA is their freshman year. They're like, oh, I got time, and they don't, because their freshman year, their GPA is counted. So we're really trying to hit that strong. We also give our freshmen the PSAT 8 and 9, so that's really the only standardized test they are going to take their ninth grade year. And that's the PSAT 8 and 9 is different from the actual PSAT because it tests subject matters that 8th or 9th graders will have had. When you're doing the actual PSAT, it's going to hit classes that you should have taken sophomore year or your junior year. We also do career exploration. So Ms. Kilburn goes into the classes and she talks with the students about what kind of career they're interested in. And this is all to get them thinking again about where they want to go in life. What skills do they have? What has God given them that they can see themselves doing? And so we want you to know that we're kind of really forcing your children to think beyond just right now. The 4-year plan, if all you remember when your student was a freshman, they sat down with a counselor and you've looked at their classes and what they're supposed to take and things of that nature. And so revisit that early and often with your students, maybe at the end of every school year and at the beginning of every school year. Make sure that they're on track, make sure they have the classes that they need. If they're planning on playing collegiate sports, make sure that you're keeping up with what's required from the NCAA. But I'm telling our students that even now they can start preparing for college. I always ask students, what do they want to be when they grow up? And I know they kind of laugh at me. So I said this already, sorry. Every year counts. Your freshman year is just as important as your junior year. Whether it's an honors class or a CP class, it's just important that your child does well. Okay, a lot of your students kind of compare, well, I'm not in honors. Still get an A or B in that class. Whatever class you take, make sure you perform well in it. I don't want students to get too caught up in the title or the rigor of the course, but you just want them to make sure they're doing well in what they have. And you also, one thing we see is that as freshmen, this is the year to develop those organizational and study skills. Now, I've tried to kind of force my own organizational skills in my kids, and it doesn't work. Right? And my look of organization is not how they see organization. So you got to give some kind of room for grace, but you want them to understand that they need to be able to find assignments, when they have it. A lot of our students miss points just from missed homework because they couldn't find an assignment or they forgot about an assignment. So whether it's a paper system, whether it's on their iPad, whether it's on their phone, help them develop an organizational system that will work for them. Also, study skills. A lot of our students think, or students in general, don't have the study skills they should have. I've been telling students it depends on the class. There might be one class where you can use note cards. There might be another class where you can just read and you'll be fine. But helping them learn strategies on their own that they can kind of be preemptive and take their education into their own hands instead of waiting for a bad grade and then being like, oh, what happened? So you want to help them encourage to have good organizational skills and good study skills. And that will translate beyond just ninth grade year. Yes, so you can call me or email me or one of the counselors. That's something we can get to you fairly quickly. Any other questions? So we've talked about career exploration in the 4-year plan. 10th grade, that's the year that your child will be taking both the pre-SAT and pre-ACT in the fall. So we've had some discussion about really waiting until like the summer of their sophomore year to take a real test. It could be a real practice test, but the real version of that test. Because now you really want to start getting into what test am I stronger at? Which test stresses me out less? Which test did I finish with enough time to spare? You want to start thinking about those things. And so I've told the 10th graders to start looking at colleges now just to see what they require. Where do they measure up of the average incoming freshman class? What GPAs do the freshmen have? What score range do they have? Because I feel like that'll help them have better purpose when they're studying for exams and going through their coursework if they have goals in mind of where they want to be. Now, of course, it'll probably change 15 times. That's fine. But we're talking about purpose and having a direction to go in instead of students just saying, I don't know. And it's okay if they don't know. But we want our students to get focused sooner so that they can be prepared and so that the college application process is not stressful, that they feel confident and that they feel prepared for it. I recommend a college notebook, maybe research, and letting your student do that. I've had a difficult balance of being a hover mom and letting my kids be independent. But what I'm learning is that as they get older, they're going to need to figure things out for themselves. So now while we have them in high school, it's a good time to coach them, but also make them do that legwork. And it's easier said than done, of course. But I would encourage you to have a notebook that they can write notes in, or a file folder that they can put notes in, or things they've printed off from the college. It's not too early to start now. So right now, your sophomore year, going into the summer of your sophomore year, we're encouraging your students to start focusing on one exam. This comic, so what did you learn in school today? And it's just bubbled in letters, right? And so I think that's a lot of how our students are getting, like right before finals or right before a big exam. They're just trying to keep everything in their head, right? And it's stressful on the parents, it's stressful on the child, and a lot of times the student doesn't know how to communicate their needs to the parents. So just be mindful of those times where you know there's finals or you know there's things going on with your child. Be open, be there for them to have open conversation with you. Listen to them. I had a problem with listening. I would listen, but then I'd tell my kids what I wanted them to know instead of being an active listener and really reflecting on my child and their needs. And we want to also give them those skills now to advocate for themselves. And that way when they go to college, they'll know how to talk to professors. They'll know how to ask questions, good questions. They'll know how to communicate about what they want and what they need to be successful. So I was reminded of that poem of footprints in the sand, you know, how someone's walking along the beach and the guy says, well, God, you know, I thought you'd be here with me all the time, but look, there's only one set of footprints. And so I'm kind of twisting that for us as parents, right? That we're trying to encourage our students to be independent, and we're kind of taking the training wheels off a little bit, but we're still always there with them. And so that kind of made me think of, okay, God is always there, but sometimes he's more hands off, and he's going to let us figure things out. And I think now is the perfect time to do trial and error with your child. You know, say, hey, look up a couple colleges. You know, where do you think you would measure with those ACT scores? And so that just goes back to my point of like making sure that your child can be independent while you're still around, because they're going to need those skills when you're not around at school every day in college. '11th grade, this is where we're going to encourage them to be more focused and be more determined. We want to focus the practice on one test. So your sophomore year, you may have taken the ACT, you may have not. You may have taken both of those tests. But this is where you should really be more focused. You want to identify areas to focus on. So like I said, on each of the pre-ACT and the pre-SAT, you know which problems you're not doing well on. You know which problems you do well on. And that way you can come with a game plan. I know I need to practice my functions. I know I need to work on commas and semicolons. I still need to work on those. But we want your child to be focused. At most, your student should be taking one test a semester. Because when you're trying to cram 2 standardized tests in, you're really not giving yourself time to really recoup, to really focus. A lot of students might take it back-to-back months, and they see their scores going down. So you want to make sure you're putting quality effort into taking those exams. You still want to focus on your GPA. You want to strategically plan classes when you're thinking about AP classes or dual enrollment classes. You want to start fine-tuning your college list, because when they start their senior year that fall, they hit the ground running. So if they kind of don't have an idea of what they're going to do, it can still get done, but it'll be less stressful on you as a parent and on your student if the family kind of knows what direction your child is heading in. You want to plan some college visits. You want to make some contact with key personnel. I've been telling students, contact an admissions counselor. You yourself, not your mom or dad. Ask a question. Send an email to a professor. Plan a college visit, because you're going to stand out amongst thousands of other students that are also applying. You want people to know your name. You want people to know that you ask thoughtful questions. Not that your mom asks good questions or that your dad asks good questions, right? You, because that's also like an interview process, an official interview process. So I want our students to be as in control as they can, because one thing we see as parents, or one thing that makes us know that we're a good parent, is if our child is a good adult, a successful adult, a productive adult. And so if we can start giving them those skills now, it'll be helpful. So we want to keep in mind, we want a delicate balance of being independent, but also still supporting your child. A lot of us think that when our child gets to high school, you're good, you're on your own, but they really need us now more than ever, but just in a different way. So be prayerful about different ways you can support your child that you may have not had to before. You might need to go back to checking their homework. You might need to go back to making sure you're communicating with their parents, because you still have just not parents, teachers. You have a few short years that they're still kind of under your roof. And you want to try to use that as much as you can now before you give them away to the world and they go off to school. The plan that God has for your child is unique to your child. And I keep reinforcing that to your kids, because a lot of us, and even I did it, I just kind of wanted to do what my friend was doing, or I was comparing what I was doing to my friend. And like I told your students, your friends are not going to be on that college application with you. They're not going to be making that scholarship application. They're not going to be sitting in those classes. This is on you. And so I really want them to embrace that God has a unique plan for them. Whatever talents they have, whatever skills they have, whatever interests, letting them know that that is what God is going to use for them to be successful. And then stress less, plan and pray more, and model this for your child. Because they pick up on us, our stress levels, how we handle conflict, how we handle planning and organizing. And so if we can try to model that for our students, even though we might feel like they're 15, they're 16, they're a lost cause, they can still learn from us. They're still watching. They're still modeling their behavior after us. And these are the years that are crucial before they are not with us anymore, living in our home. Make that clear. Okay? So now I want to invite up our test prep folks. If you guys will come down front. And what I want you to do is kind of introduce yourself and your experience with test prep. And then I'll open the floor to our parents for questions you may have.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kristen Lane. I'm the marketing coordinator with Tutor Doctor of Knoxville. We focus on in-home tutoring. We offer several different packages. You'll see in your purple bag that there is a list of what we offer for ACT and SAT. I'd like to introduce Joel Vance. He's the owner for Tutor Doctor of Knoxville.
Hi, I'm Joel Vance. I'm the owner of Tutor Doctor Knoxville. I'm also a college professor, and I've seen many students come in, and some of them very bright that did very low on the ACT or the SAT, and they could if they'd had some tutoring, they could really got some good scholarship money. and they just missed out, so.
I'm Kevin Ward. I'm with Sylvan Learning Center. I'm the center director there, and I've been part of Sylvan since 2005 in a variety of different ways. What we provide is different packages, really on the intensity and level of what is needed at the time. Sometimes you need a full program of each area, and then sometimes it's just touching on a particular area. And then sometimes it's just a matter of strategies and tactics. We even deal with helping you increase your reading speed. That's one of the things a lot of kids run into a problem of, is their pacing on the tests when they're reading through the various things. So we provide a variety of different ways to go about that. And we can help kind of guide you the same way of what is that test, what is involved there, what's sort of the things to watch out for. So.
My mouth's big enough, I don't think I need the microphone there. I'm Mike Smith. I'm a West graduate from a long, long time ago. I remember in the 70s, you could just walk into UT. You know, a lot of my friends had 17s and 18s on the ACT. You could just walk in, you know, you're a high school graduate, you could go to college. You could just walk into UT. It started changing in the 90s. And a lot of it was due to the lottery, the Hope Scholarship. Because once they started giving out tons of money, you know, the incoming freshmen, it allowed the university to select and pick actually higher level candidates going in. Same thing happened with the University of Georgia. So UT's average ACT went from like 20 to 27 on the entering freshman class once the lottery came in. So I've been tutoring for 35 years here in Knoxville. And I know when I was tutoring in the 80s and 90s, tutored some, but it wasn't nearly the focus that it began to be in the late 1990s, the early 2000s, where essentially a lot of universities started tying exact scholarship money to certain schools. You get a 32 full ride at Alabama, throw money at you. At UT, they have various levels also that they award certain thousands of dollars in addition to Hope Scholarship. So the ACT and SAT became somewhat important, you know, in the South and stuff in the 80s and 90s. And to the last 20 years, it's become extremely important in a positive way. If you get a certain high score, I mean, you're automatically in, you can automatically try for scholarship levels, and so on. And curiously, you give an example of UT, if you get admitted to UT, let's say you have a 25, let's say you have your average, you have a 25, you're probably going to be in UT probably. At a 25 with a good GPA, you won't get any extra scholarship money though. You know, at the 25 other than the Hope Scholarship. But unless you qualify for like something in an individual department. But you actually have until you start UT to get a higher ACT score and get extra thousands of dollars. Believe it or not. I mean, you can actually keep taking the ACT right up until the day you register and qualify. So if you hit it for a 28, you get an extra couple of thousand, hit a 30, 2 more thousand, hit a 32, another 2,000. So you can keep taking it. Not that you want to do that. Most students would not want to do that, but some do. We tutor some seniors, like even this summer before they go into college, trying to get that one extra point that would mean another $10,000 to them. And I've got a lot of detail on my programs in the thing, so you can read about that. This is my stuff here.
Parents, questions?
I've got a question for Dr. Smith. If you have a child that does better in one test than the other, do you?
Here's what I do. Answer your question over there. Okay.
The question was if you have a child that does better in what's in,
ACT versus SAT. All right.
okay?
All right, so here's what you want to do on that. First of all, every college in the country will take either test, ACT or SAT. Every single college will take either one. And if you send both of them in, they'll pick the highest score. So they give you the benefit of the doubt. So you need to know that first. Secondly, you need to know that the tests overlap about 50%. Okay, so there is about a 50% overlap, mostly in the math and English skills, some of the reading. Okay, so in a way, they're reasonably similar. I would take your sophomore PSAT scores and pre-ACT scores and compare them. You could look at the overall percentile of the score, maybe see which one's higher. That'd be one way to do it. You also can get a concordance table that aligns the scores, that converts like a PSAT into an ACT score, and you can kind of compare that. So that's one way as a sophomore to kind of figure it out. In general, though, here's the main difference between the two in what we do with people more SAT than ACT, okay? We do mostly ACT, but for SAT people, here's what I would say. If you're kind of a person who's a good reader, but you're slow, and you really like math, you need to do the SAT. Because the SAT gives you a lot of time on the reading, much more time than the ACT, about 50% more time for a reading question. But the math is harder. It's harder math, and half the score is math. Whereas on the ACT, you get 4 scores, English, math, reading, and science. On the SAT, you get 2 scores. You get a combined reading, writing score, and then you get a math score. So math's got to be good. And if you're a really good reader and a good math person, then you really should think about an SAT. In my programs, if you do individual tutoring with me, we can do both tests for one price. Because there is a 50% overlap.
And let me add to that. Some of you picked them up, some of you didn't. I've got a booklet that says ACT or SAT. And it's got a mini exam for each one of them in there, and then it asks you some questions. And at the end of the pamphlet, there are the answers. And that will kind of tell you which test is best for your child. So if you hadn't picked that up, on the way out, I think I've got a few left.
Oh, well, the sophomore scores are probably really good. I mean, those are actual real test scores that you can compare.
Do you have anything to add?
Well, I was going to add to that one thing that kind of understand between the two tests is, in a very general sense, ACT is focusing a great deal on aptitude, whereas SAT is focusing more on analysis. So you kind of have to think about it from that standpoint as well.
You want to read my little one-page blurb on here. I've got the whole history of both tests. My little one-page thing, you can kind of figure out, you get the whole philosophy behind both of them. Although the SAT changed its philosophy about 3 years ago because they were getting killed by the ACT. They were getting wiped out market share by the ACT. So they actually threw away the old SAT that had been in existence for almost 100 years and redid it completely.
It's
to match the
looking
ACT.
more like ACT.
Yeah.
It's actually almost.
How much statistics is on it as opposed to like geometry and algebra on the 2 tests?
Not much. There's more on the SAT. The new SAT math, if you had AP stats, you'd kill the questions on that. But there is more data analysis stuff on the SAT, just a tiny bit on the ACT math. ACT math goes from 8th grade pre-algebra right on the edge of pre-cal. So it's a broader range of math. SAT math is really algebra. A lot of algebra stuff.
A lot of students, when they come to us, their struggle becomes not necessarily the new stuff they're working on in their classes in their junior year and sophomore years. It's the stuff that they did back when they were in 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. That's the material that they just haven't covered in a long time, so it's good to review those particular things for the ACT because it does focus a great deal on algebra.
One thing about the ACT is it changes very little from year to year. For example, for English, there's 16 or 17, I can't remember the number, of punctuations that they cover. And it's the same 16 or 17 every year. So you can go in and forget about the rest of the punctuations and study those 16 or 17. The math problem's the same thing. Also, they're going to change the numbers and stuff like that, but it's going to be the same type of problem on the ACT. With the SAT, it's not that predictable. And also on the ACT for science, you could go into and take the science exam and not know a thing about science.
Yeah.
It's about reading graphs. If you
Yeah.
can read the graphs, you're good.
It's actually called science reasoning, so it's focusing on the reasoning versus the science. The science becomes the adjective there. So reasoning, the logic thinking is what we're focusing on.
On the ACT, yes. Yes. From as far as I know, it varies because it varies upon the pool of students that are testing that year. So you're,
Say about how much you're talking?
do you know?
Yeah, well, it does vary slightly, year to year, but to be a merit semifinalist, you probably need to be 1,400 something, 1,420, on the junior one. So if you're a sophomore and you're in, if you're 1,250, 1,300 range, you're in range for it. And I do a summer fall prep I produce lots of national merit semifinalists over the years. So I do a special rising junior program summer fall, but you really need to be pretty high as a sophomore to have any chance at all. It's really brutal. It's really hard, isn't it, to be a merit semifinalist?
Yes. And I think that speaks to us as a school that out of a class of what's our senior class is maybe around 100. And so to have 2 of our students as semifinalists, given our class size, it's pretty great. Because you'll have a lot of public schools with way more students that won't have that amount of semifinalists. Other questions?
So how long, the prep is usually, 6 to 8 weeks prior to the test, is that about right?
Mine's 10 to 15,
10 to 15 weeks?
although I have very question.
Yes, so she's asking.
Well, I guess my question was, like, how far should you finish your prep before you take your test?
Okay, here's what I do, and they can talk to it. My programs are 10 to 15 weeks. And like right now for juniors, like right now we're starting a class right now to get ready for the April exam. Okay? If you're doing individual tutoring, we're getting you ready for the April exam and the June. Okay, we're gonna cover both tests. So I believe in like a longer period, shorter meetings, more time to do homework. We offer practice tests as we go along. Most students take this more than once, don't they? And I try to build into the prep program time for them maybe to take it more than once to really get your highest score.
With ours, it really varies on which kind of package you want to do. Our full program can range anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks, depending on whether you decide to come once a week or twice a week. It will cover, there will be a little bit of homework in our program, but most of it will be in-center interaction. Now, ours is individualized, so it's not necessarily a class or a group, so we're very flexible with scheduling on that. We also have where you can do sections of the test. Maybe you want to focus on the English reading or science and math, and we can essentially split the program up or focus on a particular area. We even have a short one that's a one-time thing that is a boot camp and focusing on the strategy. So it's really just what your need is.
So let me rewind for a second. So what do you say, how far in advance should they start? You're saying 10 to 15 weeks, or?
Yeah, you should, we do most of our prep I do with juniors, okay? So, yeah, we do 10 to 15 weeks ahead.
Okay, and what do you say?
6 to 12 weeks is what I would say for our particular program. The SAT is a little bit longer by a couple of weeks, but just by the number of sessions that we usually ask for. But like I said, we have variety depending on what your need is. If you have a particular area of focus that you want to focus on. Like right now with February tests, a lot of what our students are focusing on is a particular area. Math, reading, science, English, whatever it may be. We're focusing on that area for those couple weeks. And we even have situations where students, we actually have a program where we help them with speed reading. Maybe they got the knowledge, but they're just not doing the pace. So we try to teach you how to be more efficient in your reading too, because that's something that the test assumes that you read at 300 words per minute.
300 words per minute, cool. Joel?
That's kind of it's an awkward question because, for an average person, I would say 8 to 12 weeks. But there's a lot of other things. One of the things that we do is give a practice test, a real test that's been retired, and have them take it just like a real ACT, time and everything like that. And then I score it, and it gives an 8 to 10 page printout of where they're good at, where they're weak at, and that sort of thing. And from there, we determine, okay, as parents, what are your goals? Okay. From there, if your student scored a 20 and they've got to have a 30, that's a lot of tutoring. So it depends, but on average, 8 to 12. We had going back to what he said about the specifics, we had an Oak Ridge student who scored a 36 on the math for ACT, which is perfect, but he had an overall 30. He wanted into Caltech or MIT, which is tough school. So obviously what brought him down was his English. So we tutored him in English for 6 weeks. He retook the test, and he got a 35 overall. So we increased his score by 5 points. But we only concentrated on English in his case.
So if what I'm hearing, it also depends on how far your child has to go to reach the goal they would want, and that's why you determine how far out you should start.
One other thing, as far as tutoring, regular tutoring, for us, it's always one-on-one, one person on one person. Except for ACT, we do group tutoring, and I've got our list. We've got small group tutoring, and we've got large group tutoring. But again, it's that's if you're on a budget or whatever. But I've got 3 boys from Farragut who took my practice tests. They did well on the math. They scored 15 on English, all 3 of them. And so we're going to have a group session with them, those 3, a small group, and we're only going to concentrate on English for that particular group. And when you're in a group, it works better if you're concentrating on the same thing. If you've got somebody good at bad in math and somebody bad in English, you might not want to do the group tutoring.
Other questions?
Would you say without the tutoring, on an average, that if a person, say they took it their junior year, spring of junior year, either test, and then took it at the beginning of their senior year, that chances are they could dip down on one, maybe raise one side of it, English might go up a little bit, but then math's go back down, and then they're still kind of.
That's a common thing we see is that they'll fluctuate.
Yep.
You know, a lot of times I encourage the parents to think about the full program, even if their concern is one particular area, because they might focus on that one particular area with our help, and then the other area suffers for it. So then it balances it out, and then the overall score becomes hit.
Yeah, very.
One other thing, some universities, not all, accept super scores. And what a super score is, what students do, they take the ACT and they only concentrate on math. They don't even look at the English. So they take it, they get a high score, hopefully in math. So the next time, they concentrate on English. Ignore the math, they get a high score in English. So some universities will take the math score from this test and the English score from this test. And UT is one of them.
Just
And it's not, but not all universities will accept super scores.
And so when I was talking to the sophomores, that's one of the things I told them. And one of the things I'm encouraging them to do, look at the schools who take super scores. The colleges that you're looking at, do they accept that? And that can help them kind of game plan on how they want to attack the exams.
Also, you know, student athletes and things like that, the NCAA super score is 21 minimum. So if you're thinking about that as well, that's something to think about as well. It's 21 is the super score, so you're focusing on a particular area, you can then focus on those areas like he's describing and really hit one particular area.
I would also say to focus on that fluctuation, because if they take it twice instead of once, I personally ended up getting a 25 composite, but I had gotten 24s, in one section and 25 the next time, so it can average out, and that could be very beneficial for turning into scholarship money for the student.
I don't break them into sections. Whenever you sign up with us, we cover everything on the test, every single time. And here's why. Unless you come in with like 36s, you've got to work every single part of the test to go up. Give you an example. Okay, you want to go 4 points on the test, right? Let's say you want to go from a 23 to 27, and you only focus on math. Well, you have to have 16 points on math to go up 4 on the overall test. Does that make sense? Because you've got, so we do everything all the time. Unless you've got like a 36 on it.
I definitely encourage the looking at all of them, because that really is what's going to benefit you in the long run.
Because even if you super score, unless you've got 36s, everything could go up. I mean, if
Yeah.
If you have 30s on sections, that's easier to raise a 30 than it is a 15. You know, so that's why we do everything all the time.
I would agree with that, except in the instance of the Oak Ridge one.
And in our particular situation, we've had students that have those strengths, but I always encourage them to make sure that they maintain with those other areas. And sometimes it's a time constraint when they call us and they're looking at a particular test too. What area do you want to focus on in that time frame? Like I was sharing, a lot of what we're getting now are students that are needing from February tests. So obviously a 12-week program is not going to be beneficial that way. So we need to think about what we can do right now at this moment.
Math classes, but we need to make sure that the kids stay to be ready to take these exams in their junior.
Algebra 1, Algebra 2, geometry for sure.
Absolutely.
For sure. Starting pre-cal or something after that would be great, but Algebra 1, Algebra 2, geometry for sure before the beginning of the junior year.
The Algebra 2 does get impacted significantly on that.
Calculus is not. Calculus, now the problem with you get into, well, the problem with students I've had that come to me over there in calculus, curiously, they've forgotten more than the ones that are just in the, I mean, I have to review all the ones that are in calculus have forgotten all the, and they're so far ahead that I wind up having to review like geometry. So you want them to have calculus, but just realize it might be that, you know, that they might need a little more review.
Calculus is probably the less on it, and on these practice tests that I give that show what they're weakest in, usually geometry is number one. Usually.
I would agree with that.
Absolutely.
Time for one more question. So the reason why I thought it was important to bring outside experts and opinions is because your child is going to be unique, like I keep saying. Your child may respond differently to one type of tutoring or the other. Your child may be one that can just focus on one subject, or your child might need to focus on more than one subject. So I think the more knowledge you have and the more educated we are about what's out there and the different strategies we can help our children be successful, I think that'll help us all in the long run. I really thank you guys for coming out. I appreciate you taking your time this evening. And parents, likewise, I appreciate you spending your evening with me. Yes. Those are yours to keep. If you want them, I can take it back if you want. Your students have been chomping at the bit to get these home. But if there are no other questions, let me just pray for you quickly and then we'll leave. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for today. We just pray that everyone makes it home safely and that we can just really think about the material that was presented here, and we think about it with our child in mind and our child's unique needs. And we just thank you so much for the opportunity to be in an environment and at a school that cares for our whole child, both educationally and spiritually. We ask that you protect us as we travel and keep us safe. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.